I attempted suicide. I went to sleep in my bed, and when I woke up into this most beautiful field. It was so gorgeous. It was like a large meadow, like ongoing as far as the eye could see.
Before we begin, I'd like to offer a trigger warning for some potentially disturbing topics that we'll be discussing in today's interview.
Hello, everyone. I am here today with Dax. Thank you so much for joining us. Dax is gender fluid. His pronouns are he, them. Dax has had a near death experience and multiple spiritual experiences after that. So, we're going to start with the near death experience and everything that led up to that.
The important part is your near death experience. So I'm going to briefly explain the other part. It started off when I was about 16 years old. I was kidnapped and I got away from my kidnappers, but I never told anybody about it. I didn't report it. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anybody. In fact, I wouldn't tell a soul until almost 10 years later when I went into therapy. And so shortly after the kidnapping, maybe a few months later after that, me and another parental figure got into a very intense argument. And the words were said, "You think life is bad now, just wait until you become an adult and you'll see how bad life can really get." Well, I just survived being kidnapped. That parental figure didn't know, but I didn't want to see how worse life could get if I've already survived that, not knowing at that time that that was more of a rare experience for people to have? So,
Right.
with that said, I mean, I was already dealing with a whole lot of trauma, a whole lot of depression, a whole lot of self esteem issues, self attacking myself, self blame. And then for this argument to happen, it made me very fearful of the future. And so I decided I wanted nothing to do with it. I was done. I was done with this life. I wanted nothing to do with my future. And so I set up a plan to kill myself, attempt suicide. And so I did that. I took a bunch of pills. If that's, I don't know, some people are interested in how I tried. I took a bunch of sleeping pills, 20 of them to be exact, because I counted them because I wanted to make sure it was a done deal. And so I took basically the whole bottle I could. And I don't remember anything between taking the pills and going to sleep. And then when I woke up in what felt like heaven to me. There's some stuff that happened in the earth realm where I have no recollection or anything about that. So anyway, so I attempted suicide. I went to sleep in my bed, and when I woke up into this most beautiful field. It was so gorgeous. It was like a large meadow, like ongoing as far as the eye could see. And it was like the most beautiful day, like the perfect temperature outside. I'm getting chilly bumps just like talking about it. Just it was beautiful. I mean, euphoria doesn't even begin to explain just the magnificence of this place. And there was a bright like sunlight, but it didn't hurt to look at like it does here. Hmm. Here it hurts your eyes to look at. There you can look directly at it and it's like warming, but I didn't have a body like I have here. But I also still felt physical sensations nonetheless, as if I did still have a body. But so I could feel like warmth from the sun, but it wasn't just like the sun being warm like it is here. It was also filling me up somehow. It was the best way I can describe it is like it was like if I was an empty container, an empty pitcher or a glass or something like that, and some kind of love and warmth at the same time filled me up. And I remember just laying there in the grass, all like sprawled out, just feeling so good, just so good. And at one point, I decided I want to fly. And then for just a half a second, I had the thought, like, I forgot how. And then I was like, oh, yeah, just jump up. Like, For just a half second, I forgot how, and then within that same half second, I remembered how. So it's like you just jump up and do it. And so I just jumped up and I could fly as fast or slow as I wanted. I could fly like 65 miles per hour if I wanted, or I could fly at like 2 miles per hour if I wanted. And so I had fun with that, speeding it up, slowing it down, stuff like that. I had fun. I was doing like twists and flips and stuff like that in the air. Just what is it? Aero. uh, I can't think of the word,
I
but
can't either.
kind of flying and twisting and whatnot in the air and stuff like that. Just having fun doing tumbling acts, I guess. And I remember at one point, I just wanted to like fly a little bit slower right over the grass. And I wanted to dip my hand like over all of the flowers and the tall grass. And I could feel it brushing along my, like basically it felt like along my skin, even though I didn't have a body. And so I could feel it, the blades and the flowers just, rubbing on my skin and just felt so good to be there. And I had no recollection of life when I was there. I had no recollection, no memory, no thought, no. It was as if I had always been there and this is where I was meant to always be. And this is where I'd always been. Like I had no thoughts, no recollection of my earth life at all, like at all. I was just pure bliss and happiness, just enjoying the fresh air, the meadows, the grass, the sun, the everything. It's like this place never experienced one drop of anything negative ever in this place. Like nothing negative could have ever existed here. Never has, never will. And I can't really, it's hard to explain the sun. The sun wasn't, I go back to this because it wasn't just a sun, like it wasn't just a source of light. There was something more to the light. There was like, it was almost like pulsing as if it's its own entity or something like that. I didn't even have the word God in mind when I was there. I just knew that this was the beautiful source and it felt so warm and loving. It's like weird to describe a sun as loving. That's what it felt like. It felt like it was returning love to me or giving me love just by its light. And it was so precious. I could almost cry. It was so precious because, like I said, it filled me up in some kind of way. And I was so happy, so happy there. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to go anywhere. And I didn't think I could. Like I said, it felt like I'd always been there. This is where I'd always been. But I do remember at some point, it's well, not that I got tired. I just felt like laying back down in the grass because I wanted to lay down back in the grass and feel all the blades of grass surrounding me. Because in real life, I'm allergic to grass. So I can't do that in real life. I can't be in the grass in real life. So it felt so good to be in the grass and not get all the itchies from the allergies. And so I wanted to lay back down. So I did. And I felt all the grass just kind of almost like just surrounding me, just like grass would, just surrounding me. But everything in this place, it wasn't here, a blade of grass is just a blade of grass. There, everything is its own entity. The grass loves you. I don't know how to describe that.
Mhm.
But the grass loves you. Like the grass wants you to play with it. The grass wants you to lay in it. The grass doesn't mind you smushing parts of it down. Like it's there for you. It wants to play with you, interact with you, love you. Same with the light. The light wants to love you. Like everything is an entity. It's not just like it is here. Like a blade of grass is just a blade of grass. I mean, I do believe that everything has its own energy now. After that experience, it really opened my mind to like, oh, the ground is alive. you know? So it kind of taught me that. It taught me that everything, like a tree, very well does have its own spirit, its own entity, its own living, breathing mechanism that I do believe that flowers and trees and grass can experience love after this experience I had. Weird to think about, I know. But after that experience, I realized nature can love us back. It really can, and it does, and it's here for us. So I just remembered laying down in the grass and just kind of feeling it, feeling the grass loving me back, like just kind of welcoming me into its nest of what I wanted to experience with the grass just, I don't know, just feeling it all over my arms and stuff. And so I closed my eyes and I went to sleep. But when I woke up in the hospital. And there was a nurse that was there. And for those few seconds, I still had that bliss being held with me. Like I still had that bliss as I was barely opening my eyes. And then she's like, "Oh, well, you're here." And I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Do you know where you are?" No, I don't." And then she's like, "Well, you're at such and such hospital." And she goes, "Do you know why you're here?" And I thought about it. I was like, I don't remember." And then she goes, "Well, apparently last night you tried to kill yourself." And once she said that, after she said that, that is when all that earthly crushing depression, trauma, pain, everything just went like a boulder back right into me. And just, it felt like crushing. And it was, oh, that was like the worst feeling after coming from bliss, from coming from just everything that was just perfect and beautiful and that loves you and wants to envelop you. So, yeah. So that's my experience.
Thank you so much for sharing that experience. And as I'm listening to you share it, it's making me at a loss for words because it reminds me, it just takes me back to mine. And mine was very different. Like it wasn't, not saying that it was the same as yours, but the feeling, the bliss, and
Yeah.
just there's no words for it. And as hearing you describe it, it
Exactly.
takes me back to it. And then coming back here and the contrast between there and here, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't
Like a
even
boulder.
imagine what you were
Just
dealing with. So it's interesting. It is interesting to hear you say that before you had the memory of those earthly events, that you were still in that bliss. Do you think
Mhm.
why do you think that we get so engrossed in in what's happening here that we can't feel that bliss anymore?
It's if we felt that bliss all the time, we wouldn't go through the lessons that we have to learn.
Mm,
So if we wouldn't learn like how to deal with loss or grief, you know? And I really do think that in some way, I really feel that we've chose to come down here. I don't know this for a fact or anything, but I feel that way. I feel like we chose to come here for reasons, whether it's to help support other people, for, whether it's to, there's that saying like you're always an enemy in somebody's storyline, but
right.
you're also always somebody's angel in somebody's storyline.
Mhm.
So it's maybe there might be parts of my life where I was put here to be, somebody's bad thing, but I came here to do that, to help that along. Or maybe I was here to do a lot of good things too and
Mhm.
help those along. But regardless, these experiences that we have, like being kidnapped, the trauma, we wouldn't learn these things and what it's like. We wouldn't be able to go on and help other people. Cause I think that after this, a lot of us, well, if we want to, I think we can choose to be guides for other people. And I feel like that's probably something that my soul would be interested in. Since I seem to mentor, like I'm always been that person that everybody comes to talk about their problems or their things or whatever's going on with them. Or it'll be a complete stranger and I'll just be like, "Hey, how are you?" And they're like, "Hey," like in a store or something looking for shirts. And the next thing I know, they're telling me their life story and how their husband died 2 years ago and they haven't ever gotten over it or something. And they're like, "I don't know why I'm telling you this. Like, I never talk about this. I don't even talk about this with my closest friends or family." And I'm like, "That's okay. I'm here to listen. I'm here to listen. If you want to talk about it, would you like to go get some coffee? Kind of thing. Like we could sit down and talk. But yeah, so I seem to be that in a lot of people's lives anyway. And the number one thing I always wanted to do was to be a mom, but identify as he. But I'm still like my kids still I still want my kids to call me mom because they have a dad. They have dad, they need their mom, even though I identify as trans. So, and that was a very important role to me in life, to have kids and guide them as well. Always wanted to be that, experience motherhood, whatnot. So that was, I've always enjoyed helping people when I can, or showing them some compassion or a little bit of love, or I believe everybody is worth a compliment. And there have been people that have just totally broke down and cried because I told them I liked their earrings. They're like, "Oh my God, you don't even know. I've had the worst day, and that's the nicest thing anybody has said to me in like the last 3 days of hell I've had." And I'm like, "I'm sorry." Like, what do you say after that? Like, do you want a hug? I laugh, but I just laugh because sometimes when I'm nervous, but it's not laughing matter. But um I'm losing train of thought, but I believe that at least for me, I can't speak for everybody or what other people's paths are on, but I think my soul is on some kind of path to be a guide. And I think I chose to experience a lot in this life to prepare me to be a guide for other people after this life. So, and I think that if I experienced that bliss all the time, I would have walked around in some kind of la la land, not really understanding what grief feels like, not really understanding what it's like to have my physical body violated, not knowing what it's like to deal with depression or, wanting to die. Maybe later on, one of the people I'm going to be guiding will be going through one of these experiences, or maybe somebody I guide, will be somebody who wants to kill themselves, and another person I guide might be somebody who experiences their body being violated against their will, stuff like that. So I think I chose a really hard life to go through a lot of things. So to try to be the best guide I can after this life is done. I think. I don't know about anybody else though. I don't know what other soul paths people are on. And I'm not even sure if that's my path or not. I'm just taking a guess.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That was actually going to be my next question. And I know it's a really tough question, but it's one of the most common questions that I see is that people will ask, why do we come here and suffer? Like to that extent of being kidnapped and violated and abused, why do so many of us have to go through that? And I don't know if there's any good answer to that, but I love what you said there.
Is I really think that this earth it's kind of like it's a school, but it's
Mhm.
also a playground. It's like think of a school, like think of elementary school, like when we went to elementary school and you had your classes, but then you had recess, or at least here in America we did. I don't know about any other countries, but
Mhm.
here in America we had, our classes and then we had recess. And recess was our favorite time. And I think we experience points in our life where it's like we go through these hard lessons and then we have a recess, we have some fun. We fall in love. Maybe we get married or have a kid, or we experience some of the joys, the pleasures, the recess. But then we also go through these other hard lessons. Like,
Mm.
you know, a couple years after having these beautiful, amazing kids, I experienced going through a divorce, you know?
Right.
So, excuse me.
Mm.
So there's this, it's like, I think it's like a school and a playground mixed into one. And I feel like it's probably one of the harsher worlds for us to learn these things of what it's like to be like if we want to go on to be a guide to other souls in this realm. I don't know why this realm needs so much help. I don't know why it's in so much danger, but for some reason my soul just feels like this realm, dimension, this earthly world that we're on, and whatever dimension realm it's in, is in trouble, like big
Mhm.
time trouble. And we need all the light workers and all the love, compassion, light workers, people we can get,
Mhm.
that are on that side of the fence, so to speak. And all roads lead to Rome, it being to heaven and to God. It doesn't matter what side of the mountain you live on. If you look at the world as a mountain, it doesn't matter what side of the mountain you live on. Each side of the mountain might have their different outlook of God, the entity of creation, what is Gaia, Mother Earth.
Mhm.
You could even go back into the Greek gods and goddesses if you want to. All roads lead to Rome. you know, all paths will lead the same direction. Reminds me of a Buddhist lesson I was told once. I don't know if I should tell the story real quick. I
Yeah,
could.
go for it.
Okay, so there's this old Buddhist lesson that it teaches the same thing. There's this father, and he has these three daughters. One daughter loves dolls, another daughter loves to fish, and another daughter, I don't know, she loves her hair and loves hair things, has long, beautiful hair and loves hair things. And he comes home one day and stuff from a hard day at his work, and he sees that his house is on fire. And he knows all three girls are trapped inside. And so to get the girls out, he tells the one that, I can't remember what I said. One of them that likes the hair, he goes, "Oh, hey, come out here. I have some new hair products for you." And she's like, "Oh, yeah." So she comes out to see what new hair products he has. And then he applies to the interest to the other two, whatever I said. I don't even remember. But he applies to the interest, like say the other one collects dolls, I don't know, dolls. So he tells her, "Well, I have some new dolls for you." So she comes out. Oh, yeah. She comes out of the house. And then the third one, I can't remember.
You said fishing.
Fish. Yeah, she loves fishing. So he tells her that he has a new fishing rod for her. And she goes, "Oh, yeah." So she comes out. And it's basically, this is like God's way of getting us out of the burning house. He doesn't care how he has to appeal to
Right.
you. He doesn't care which path he has to take, like what path you're on that you find God, whether it's this interest or that interest or this interest over here. It doesn't matter. All paths lead to the same place.
I
And so
love that.
it's like an old Tibetan Buddhist story to
Mhm.
teach you about why there's so many different facets of God and the entity of creation.
Mm. I love that so much because it helps to dispel some of the judgment that we tend to have in between religions.
Well, however he can appeal to your interest to get you out of the burning fire, that's what he's going to do. We are
Mhm.
in a house that's burning up in flames. Okay. And however he can appeal to your interest to get out of that house of fire, that's what he's going to do.
Mm.
Well, I mean, not on purpose because we still have free will, but whatever might draw you back to him in that path,
Mm.
because we still have free will, but still there's many different paths of interest that one could take
Mhm.
to find that in their life.
Well, Dex, let's move on. You've had several more experiences, and you shared with me one where you saw your aunt in a dream. Would you like to share
Yes.
that one?
Yes. Okay. So the place of bliss that I talked about in my near death experience, I've been there two other times. About 2 years after my near death experience is the first time that I went back to that room. I don't know how, like, I didn't go there on purpose. I just went to sleep in my bed one night. And when I woke up there, and my aunt was there, and I was laying my head. She was sitting like crisscross in the grass. And when I woke up, my head was laying in her lap. But as soon as I woke up and I opened my eyes and I saw it was her, of course, like I immediately like got up to go give her a hug. I was like, "Oh my God." Now my Aunt June, she passed away when I was like 13 years old from cancer. And I miss her, and to this day still grieve over her loss. So when I saw her, I was just ecstatic and I was in tears and I went to go hug her. I wasn't in tears because of the sorrow of grief that we feel here, I was in tears in the way that people cry at a wedding tears. Like, I was so overjoyed and happy to see her, I was crying. Because again, this place doesn't know anything negative. So it was just like my friend who I haven't seen for a really long time. Well, more than my friend, my family member who I haven't seen for a super long time. And I was so overjoyed about seeing her, I was crying. And so I went to go hug her and hold her. And then we were just kind of talking. And I eventually I did kind of lay my head back down on her lap, and she was like running her fingers through my hair. And so I was just sort of hanging out, talking with her. And then I remember her saying, like, she right before, okay, shortly before this ended, she said, she goes, "Honey, I need to tell you that I'm always here for you. Always. I'm always here for you. If you ever need me, just ask me and I'll be right there for you." And I'm like, "Okay, all right." And she goes, "But for now, you got to wake up and you need to," I think at the time I was going to college. She's like, "You need to wake up and go to school." And I was like, "What?" And so she goes, "It's time for you to wake up now, okay?" She goes, "I love you. I'm always here if you need me. I love you. Wake up." And then almost just like that, I woke up. And I woke up, and then my human self, just seeing her, cried out of grief and loss, cried. There, I was crying out of overjoyment. Here, I was crying out of grief. And so it was completely different, but like I cried here. That day I could not go to school. Like I could not, I was just gonna be a crying mess. So I ended up not going to classes that day because I needed a mental health day. So yeah, I didn't go to classes. But so yeah, she told me that if I ever needed her there, if I like she's just all I gotta do is just call out for her. She gave me the impression like I don't even have to voice it, like I could just call out in my mind for her. Like I don't have to call her with my physical voice. And then there was, should I go to the second time?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the second time was a few years after that, about, I think I was maybe 24, 23, 24 at this time. Now this time is, so I was moving around a lot at that time. I hadn't really settled any place, didn't have my own place of my own. And I was living with a boyfriend at the time. And I had friends, like, well, we all do have friends that live in different parts of the city and stuff like that. And you know how you have some friends that you see more often than others. Well, I had this set of friends that I saw, before I started dating this other guy who lived on the other side of town and moved in with him. I saw this other set of friends pretty often. But since I lived on the other side of town, it was rare that I could get on the side of town where they were to see them. So I didn't see them very often. And, they were still friends. And anyway, one night I went to sleep over at my boyfriend's house, went to sleep. And when I woke up, I was in those same fields with the sunlight. And this time it was my friend, I'm just going to call it, his name's Craig. So anyway, it was my friend Craig. And Craig was turned around and he was like, "Just a minute, like he was turned around, just a minute, just a minute." And he was saying this towards the source of the light. Like all I saw was what looks like the sun. But he was talking like he's talking to a person, but I didn't see anybody else there except for the sun. But yeah, he was like, "Just a second, just a second." And he looks at me and goes, "Hey, what's up?" And I was like, "Hey, Craig, what's going on?" And goes, "Give me some love." That's what he used to always say to me, to give me a hug. And I was like, "Yeah." So I gave him a hug and I was kind of like really confused, but I was happy to see my friend. And he's like, "So let's have a seat. What's been going on? Tell me about your life." And so I was telling him about what's going on. We just sort of, just kind of like my aunt, we just sort of sat and chit chatted. That part of the conversation I don't really remember, just kind of sat and chit chatted like friends. And then it started getting towards what I could say the end. And he was like, "Okay." And he goes, "Look, I don't have much more time left. So I need to tell you something. And you got to promise me you will remember this. You have to promise you will remember this. Okay." And I'm like, "Okay, Craig, whatever it is, I promise. I'll remember. I promise." And goes, "You have to go back and tell my wife that I never meant for this to happen. I never meant for this to happen, and that I love her, and I love our son, and I will always be there for them. Always. I will always, always, always be there for them. All they gotta do is call for me. And you too, if you ever need me, just call for me, but tell them, okay? It's so important to me. You have to tell them. Like, he kept reiterating this. And I was like, all right, I'll tell them you never meant to do this and that you love them and all they got to do is call for you. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, you got to wake up now. Time for work. And I'm like, what? And he goes, it's time for work. You got to wake up. And I'm like, okay. Most of my dreams, I don't have people telling me to wake up. Like, those are the only two dreams I've ever had. And then I wake up just like that. So I woke up and I was thinking, that's weird. Now, I haven't seen Craig and his wife and his kid for a long time, for a couple months at that point. And so I was like, huh, well, I should go and say hi to them. So later on that day, I got some gas money and whatnot, probably borrowed some from my boyfriend. I don't know. But I took a drive and went down there to go see him. Now, they lived with the wife's mom. So they lived with her mom. So I went to go visit the house and I knocked on the door and her mom answered. And I was like, hey, I'm not going to say it. I'm like, is my friend here? And she said, no, she's at work. But normally she would just like open the door and be like, but Craig's here. Come on inside. But she was like blocking the door, like not welcoming at all. Like she had this stern look on her face and it was very awkward for her. Like she wasn't normally like this towards me or anybody. Like she normally liked me. And so I asked her, I was like, is Craig here? And she goes, you don't know, do you? And I'm like, no. And she goes, Craig died 2 months ago. He killed himself. And then she slammed the door. And I was like,
Wow.
what? She just like closed the door on me. And I'm like stunned, sitting there like, huh? Like I had no word. Like I still have no words. Like I had no word. I was completely stunned and shocked. And I didn't know what to do because, I mean, she wasn't home. The mom just closed the door on my face. She normally wasn't like that towards me. She must have been going through something that night. So I was like, okay, this is awkward. So I just kind of turned back around, went back to my car and went back home. I kept trying. About a couple weeks later, or I think I called my friend and stuff like that. Like I got, phones. I started using the phone. So I was getting a hold of her, and then eventually I went over to her house, make a little some of the stories. There's one time when I went over there and I was hanging out with her, I asked her if she's ready to talk about Craig yet, and she said, "No, she's not ready, she can't." And so I told her, I was like, "That's okay, I understand." And then so it was until a couple months after that, it was almost like 6 months by now, like 6 or 7 months after I'd had my dream. Well, you know what I mean, my visit, my dream visit, that I was able to finally tell her Craig's message. And when I did, she goes, when I told her that and goes, he said that he never meant for this to happen and that he loves, I told him that loves you, loves your guy, loves your son, and that he's always here for you guys. He'll always be watching over you guys. He'll always be in his life, your son's life, watching over him and everything. And she just sort of nodded. She goes, that makes a lot more sense. And I'm like, what? And she goes, that makes so much more sense, especially after watching the police video. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so then she told me the story of what happened the night that he died. And they'd gotten into a fight, and she'd left to go over to a friend's house to cool down for a minute. And he got very emotional, and nobody even knew he had a gun, but he pulled a gun out from the bedroom, went into the backyard, was threatening to kill himself. And then, so her mom got on the phone, got her daughter on the phone and told her she needs to come back because he's threatening to kill himself unless you come back and he wants to talk to you now. And she's like, oh my God, okay. And she's also called the police at this point. So the police got there. He told them, no police, no police. I'm not going to talk to any police. The only person I'm going to talk to is my wife. And they're like, okay. And the other, like, there was an order for them to not do anything. like to just stay on the property in the front yard. They were trying to like they were up against the backyard fence trying to talk to him, trying to talk him down. There was a new cop that arrived on the scene. A new cop, and I was told he was rookie. I don't know about that near here nor there. But anyway, he arrived on the scene and he was going to do some kind of protocol book that he was trained to do by protocol. And one of the protocols was to light a flare or something like that. I don't know. I can't, maybe it wasn't like a flare gun. I don't know. He did something where it caused a loud bang sound. So I think it was a flared gun. I don't know. Anyway, the loud sound, like by this time, she had gotten back home and she was outside in the backyard talking to him. The neighbor was also outside talking to him because the whole neighborhood had gotten involved at this point because the whole entire police team and everything is there. So the neighbor's outside talking to him. My friend's out there outside talking to him. This new police arrives, fires off a flare, whatever. He still had the gun to his head, and the sound made him jerk. And when he jerked, he pulled the trigger. And that's what she said was on the video. So some kind of police video that they were able to capture. That it was that new cop that arrived that did something by protocol. He thought he was doing the right thing. He wasn't aware that there were specific orders of not to do certain things that they normally would do. I don't know. So, and that's what he meant by, I never meant for this to happen. I think that his human self was just trying to emotionally manipulate his wife into coming back and talking to him, that he wasn't actually officially going to go through with it. But then when his hand jerked, it happened.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. So that's how he passed away.
So it's wonderful that you were able to give her some comfort by sharing your experience, and then she could
Yeah.
have the confirmation that it wasn't intentional.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have time to share about your 3 dreams with Jesus?
I do. They're not very long dreams, but I have had 3 dreams of Jesus. So the first dream was in early 2000s, and by this time I was married and had 2 kids. I think I was pregnant with my third, something like that. Anyway, when I went to sleep, and my dream was I was at my old YMCA where I used to take swimming lessons as a kid for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, I was at the YMCA and I jumped into the deep end and I was swimming towards the shallow end. Once I reached the shallow end, I like when I was coming up out of water, I knew not to open my eyes in that like Jesus was there. Like I don't know how my brain knew, but my brain just knew that Jesus was there and I wasn't supposed to open my eyes. And so I got to the other side. I came up out of the water and then he would like I could feel the hand kind of gently coming up and clasping the back of my neck. And then his other hand plugging my nose and he baptized me. I'm not kidding. He
Wow.
baptized me in the shallow end of my old YMCA pool where I took swimming lessons as a kid. And he dunked me 3 times. And I don't know what he was saying. He was talking in some language that I'd never heard of before and could
Mhm.
not understand. And he did it 3 times. Like you know, put me under, brought me up, put me under, brought me up. He put me under, and then when he brought me up, it was weird because I could feel his hands fading as they lifted me back out of the water, but I also knew, like, after I was fully up out of the water, he was gone and I could open my eyes again. I don't know why I had to keep my eyes closed during that, but I did. And then when I got out of the water and he left some stuff for me off to the side. He left a towel, some clean clothes, and what was really interesting to me is a black hooded jacket. Ever since then, a black hooded jacket comes into my life completely for free. And it's like this, if I don't understand it, but somehow I understood in the dream that the black hooded jacket, like the black hoodie, is like his protection around me. And ever since then, black hoodies have come into my life like for free. And
Wow,
I
that's
always wear
amazing.
them because I always feel like it's Jesus giving me the gift of a black hoodie to protect me. I don't know. But yeah, I find that interesting. So then we're going to skip forward a couple years later. Let's see. My second dream it was after I'd gotten divorced, but I had just met my husband. Well, we weren't married. We just met and we've been getting giggly with each other with the butterflies on our stomach and starting to date each other. Like we weren't official boyfriend and girlfriend yet, but we were starting that path. And I'd gone on a weekend trip with some friends at the time to California. Well, then I lived on the West Coast, so going to Cali was like an 8-hour drive. So I'd went on a weekend trip with some friends of mine to California, and I'd have back then, well, I still have really bad back problems. My back was really acting up, being really bad and whatnot. And so while the rest of everybody else went off to go to the bar to go drink, I stayed at the hotel room and just kind of hung out, talked to Paul on my phone, and just hung out at the hotel room. And I went to bed early that night. Well, I went to bed, and when I woke up, I was in the hotel room, but there was Jesus and like a couple other people there. I know they were all important people somehow in some way, but I couldn't tell you who they were. Like, it's not like Marilyn Monroe and John F. Kennedy or something. Like, I couldn't tell you who they were. It's the only person I knew for a fact was Jesus. Jesus was, and we were all sitting in the same hotel room that I was staying at. And we were just sitting around talking and laughing. Like, Jesus was telling jokes. He came with jokes, like
A lot of people say that.
he did. He came with the jokes. We were like laughing. We were it was like the bestest time ever. It was so much fun. I had more fun in my dream with Jesus and the buddies that were all hanging out. I don't know if they were my spirit guides. I don't know who they were, but whoever they were, I had a blast. I had more fun with them than I had with my friends. Sad to say, I did. I had a lot of fun with my friends too, so that's saying something. But so yeah, we just had a good time laughing and joking and just kidding around and just talking like friends do. Like it's a get together party, but no alcohol, like no drugs and no alcohol, but a party nonetheless, and a very fun party at that and stuff. And that was pretty much my dream. At some point they said, okay, well, we do have to go. But we will see you later. Or, just kind of like how friends would part, be like, all right, well, bye, take care, hug and stuff like that. And a lot of people ask, what did Jesus look like since I had my eyes open this time? All I can say is his skin looked like it could be every ethnicity, everything. He looked like he could be everything. That's all I can say. It was like dark enough to be any type of darker skin. It was light enough to be any kind of lighter skin. It
Wow.
looked like it could be everything. I don't really remember the color of his eyes per se, but if I had to take a guess, I would say almost the same thing about his eye color. Like the best is hazel, with it being like almost every single color mixed in. A little bit of blue, a little bit of, black, a little bit of brown, a little bit of green, a little bit of whatever. I don't really remember his eyes specifically. I can't say I can't draw. I know the typical pictures that we mostly see, like the Last Supper of Jesus, that's not quite right. He does have longer hair, or at least the dream that I had, he did have longer hair. And again, the color of his hair, it was like every single color. It had like strands and pieces that were like, it was dark enough to be brown with a little bit of black in it with some red highlights, and it shined with this like golden blonde almost highlight over it. It's like his skin was every color, his eyes were every color, his hair was every color. That's the best way I can describe him. And then I don't know how to describe facial features. I'm not good with describing facial features, but just the most friendly face you can imagine. Just imagine a very, very friendly face. He did appear male to me. Some people have gender things when it comes to these things, but in my dream, he looked and appeared male. So I'll say that. But yeah, just a very kind, gentle male face with longer-ish hair, shorter than mine, but like the pictures kind of have it. I think his hair is a little bit longer than what the pictures say, but shorter than my hair. Like it would come to like right here or something. The third dream was after I was with Paul, we'd moved to where I live now. I don't want to dox myself. So, where we live now, and we just moved here. And at this point, we are, of course, dating very strongly. And Jesus came to me, and like I went to sleep that night, and he came to me in my bedroom. And I was like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And he goes, "We need to talk." And I was like, "Okay." And goes, "But we can't talk here." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then just like that, like he held on to me, like he like put his hands on my shoulders, like just like right here, he held on to me and he goes, "Here, let's go." And within seconds, I'm telling you, like 1 second, we went from the earth ground all the way launched into somewhere in the middle of space. I tell you, like in the middle of nowhere, nowhere. And we were just floating in mid space. There was no ground, no anything around us, no, like, I didn't see planets or anything. Like, it was just black with stars. That's it, just black with stars, just in the middle of space, in the middle of nowhere. And he goes, "Okay, here's safe to talk." And I'm like, "Okay." Unfortunately, I don't remember the rest of the conversation. I don't think I was meant to. I think he needed to talk to my higher self, as they say, or my soul or something like that. But like much how we were talking about how we don't remember the bliss from there to here, it's like I wasn't meant to remember the conversation. I do remember though when he wrapped it up and he said, "All right." And he goes, "Well, that's it for now. I do need to get you back though. So we're going to get you back." And I'm like, "Okay." And again, you know, just touched my shoulders. And within a second, like, you would not believe, like, how I mean, it was, yeah, it was fast. So, within a second, we came all the way back from the middle of space out of nowhere. I'm not even sure we were in the Milky Way. I don't think we were. But, like, we came all the way back down. It felt like we went through multiple dimensions or something. I don't even know, but it was within a second, and then we were back in my bedroom and he goes, "Alrighty." And he goes, and just kind of partying again like friends would. He goes, "You take care, okay?" And he gave me a hug. And I looked down and I saw like my body for a half second. And I was like, well, I saw my body. And then for a half second, I was thinking, wait. And I was like, how am I? And then he was gone. And I was like, how am I going to get back in? And then just by the thought of it, boom, I was in and I woke up. Like, by the time I finished the thought, how am I gonna get back in to my body, I was awake and in my body.
Wow, that is incredible.
So those are the 3 dreams. That not as entertaining as the near-death experience or the other 2 times that I've been, but yeah, those are the 3 dreams I've had of Jesus since my near-death experience.
Mm.
And that last dream was my most recent one where he took me to outer space and talked, and that was about 7, 8 years ago now. So that
Wow.
was my most recent one.
Okay. No, I thought those were extremely interesting. Your third one, where you mentioned that you think you might have traveled through dimensions and it happened so
Possibly.
fast, that happened to me in my experience as well. And I also couldn't remember any of the things that I saw when I was that expanded.
Yeah, yeah, I don't remember, like, I just remember it being black and stars, and I remember like, I don't remember the conversation after he was saying, like, "Okay, here we can talk," and then
Mhm,
just as black as it was out there, my mind went black, like,
mhm,
well, at least my human mind did. I have no recollection of it. I
mhm.
wish I did. It sounds like a really cool conversation to go
Right.
all the way out to, like, another dimension to go talk, my goodness.
Right. Well, Dax, thank you so much for having this conversation. This has been amazing. And I'd like to give you an opportunity to share where the viewers can find you. I believe you have a YouTube channel and an Instagram.
I do. It's Encrypted Angels, except for the encrypted part is spelled with DID. So it's ENCRYPTDIDANGELS and then a space nursery. So Encrypted Angels Nursery. And then the Instagram is the same, except for there's just a underscore between Encrypted Angels and Nursery. There's an underscore. So I don't
Okay.
know if I said that clearly or not.
Well, I'll have the links in the description
There
for
you
people
go.
to
That
check out
works.
if they'd like to. Thank you so much for doing
You're
this.
welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for watching the Love Covered Life podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and comment with your thoughts and opinions, and check the description box for the links to my free community where I share lots of resources, my Pay What You Can community where we do classes and challenges together, my TikTok, Instagram, my Clips channel, and lovecoveredlife.com where I share my paintings. Thank you so much for your support.